I'm shy. I know that seems hard to believe, but I'm happy to talk in front of 750 people and talk books and answer questions. But if you put me in a social gathering, I'll be the person in the corner, and I'll get sort of sweaty palms if anyone comes towards me, because I find it really difficult to make small talk. All of my nightmares revolve around my wife and children, and perhaps that's why I write books. Most of my books, they're about women and children in jeopardy. And my wife will tell me, it always tells me that when I have a nightmare and I'm screaming inside my head, in fact I whimper like a kitten and I levitate off the bed. And but it's always about my children being in danger and that I'm not quite able to reach them. And maybe I write books about these things because secretly I'm sort of hoping that I can keep the bad things away from my children if I put them down on paper. Without a doubt, the most defining book was my first novel, The Suspect. I'd dreamed of being a writer since I was 12 years old, growing up in small country towns, and that was a book that was sold on a part manuscript of 117 pages and caused a bidding war at the London Book Fair, and in the space of about 3 hours was sold into nearly 20 translations. It changed my life. It was like winning the lottery. Every dream I'd ever had of being a full-time writer came true. I don't listen to music when I'm writing. It's too distracting. And unlike a lot of writers, I don't have a soundtrack that goes with a book, and I don't mention songs. But I looked through my iTunes library at the song that I've listened to most over the last 10 years, and it's Things Are Changing by Bob Dylan, which won an Academy Award in 2000 or something like that. But I love singer-songwriters. I guess, you know, when I was a youngster playing the guitar, I dreamed that I would be a singer-songwriter one day. That obviously didn't happen. I'm going to go for a really traditional answer on this one, and an oft-used one. It's Atticus Finch of To Kill a Mockingbird. Because even though that book is told through the eyes of a child scout, the moral heart of the story is Atticus, you know, her father. And I think he's a figure that, you know, all men should aspire to be, someone who uses his brains rather than his fists, and someone who walks away from an insult, and someone through the force of his intellect who can change people's opinions and minds for the better. How the hell did you fool them all? My greatest influence? I think from a writing point of view, it was Ray Bradbury. I discovered the works of Ray Bradbury, the wonderful writer of Fahrenheit 451 and Something Wicked This Way Comes. I discovered him when I was about 9 years old, and you couldn't get all the Bradbury titles in Australia, so I very naively wrote a letter addressed to Ray Bradbury, Random House, New York. And I was living in a small country town in Australia, and about 3 months later a package arrived through the post, and it contained the 4 Bradbury titles that weren't available in Australia, along with a letter from Bradbury himself saying how thrilled he was to have a young fan on the far side of the world. Tremendously generous gesture, and I think I wanted to be a writer from that moment. Well, that would depend. If I didn't want to live, I would probably read Eat, Pray, Love, because I think I would die quite quickly. If I wanted to die laughing, it would be the complete works of P.G. Wodehouse. And if I wanted to simply be in awe of the writing, it would be 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I'm going to choose a favourite book rather than a favourite author. And it's when I was a young journalist, I read a book called A Movable Feast. It was Ernest Hemingway's posthumous memoir about when he was in his early 20s, living in Paris and wanting to be a writer and beginning on his journey as a writer. I was about 22 when I read that book, and I remember carrying a battered copy of it with me when I first arrived in Paris. And I walked the streets and I went to the same bars and the same restaurants, and I sat in them and I dreamed that I too could just order a dozen oysters and sharpen the pencils and open up my blue notebook, and the words would come, and that I too could be a writer. My favourite word is, serendipity. Because, I mean, the word, you just say it, it's musical, but also the meaning, that idea of the happy accident, the fortunate happenstance. I love that idea, and I feel as though my life has been exactly that, a very happy accident.